Ghost Rider Volume 10, Issue number 21, Legacy number 264. Jonny Blaze's Last Ride. That's right. This cover here looks amazing. We've got Ghost Rider Jonny Blaze with his back facing us, looking over his left shoulder. Very symbolic in something somebody would do when they're leaving, when they're departing, right? This is very reminiscent of Undertaker, I believe at one of his WrestleManias, walking back up the ramp and then kind of pausing and looking back over his left shoulder before he continued on into the back. This here is a symbolic cover because, yes, this just might be Jonny Blaze's last ride as Ghost Rider. Maybe not permanently, but indefinitely for sure. Now, for those of you who don't know, this current volume of Ghost Rider, Jonny Blaze has kind of taken a backseat, if you will, to his lover, his love interest, and quite the interesting character, Talia Warroad, who's a former FBI agent, and I think she had a Shield affiliation in their paranormal department, but she's basically into magic and all of the sorts. And the middle of this volume, once she was introduced and tasked with getting close to Jonny Blaze and the Ghost Rider, initially he was her target, and then they ended up working together, and they really ended up working together, and Jonny Blaze ended up working inside of her, if you know what I mean. And basically, they just went from town to town fighting, monsters and demons and spirits and whatnot, and cleansing towns and things like that. But now we are getting a lot of character development into Talia Warroad, her past, maybe why she is the way that she is. And it does have ties to Mephisto, the one who gave Jonny Blaze the spirit of vengeance in the first place. And Talia Warroad basically was introduced to the cult of Mephisto by her former ex-boyfriend. The typical young girl falls for the bad boy in high school, and it's a small town, and they all kind of go up to some hill or some forest, if you will, and there's some like fire, and they're all doing just weird shit. So yeah, basically this guy was the leader of the cult of Mephisto. He was imbued with magical powers as well, and he taught Talia basically most of her spells and everything that she knows. She, of course, furthered them and developed them. But basically, this here is the culmination and kind of her getting closure. She basically was tailing the cult of Mephisto, I believe, in the last two issues. And now she's basically using Jonny Blaze and the Spirit of Vengeance to kind of help her, but she's not just using him because she wants to close this chapter on her life herself. So let's see exactly what happens here in this final issue of volume number 10, Benjamin Percy and crew. This is Ghost Rider 21. Let's go. So in the last issue, Talia, Jonny Blaze's basically girlfriend there, they created a kind of, they had like astral sex, if you will, like spiritual sex, and they created this moon child, which is this kind of weird ET looking baby, this big headed gray baby you see here. And it's kind of looks like it's about a 10-year-old boy or a child, but it's got this big gray like ET head and skull. And basically it's the product of their spirits or their essences merging, if you will. I don't know how the hell it even happened, but basically she's going to use this as kind of like a remote way to send this being inside of the hideout of the cult of Mephisto and her ex-boyfriend to kind of spy on them and look and see what's going on without really being detected. And I know it's kind of weird. Jonny Blaze now not in full Ghost Rider bloom, kind of questioning her. As you see, she's trying to concentrate. She can see what the Moonchild sees and feel what it feels and experience everything. So she's basically seeing through it because they were locked outside of this facility, if you will. But this Moonchild can, I guess, walk through walls or some shit like that. So she is using this remotely to basically get an inside look at what they're dealing with. Back outside to Jonny and Talia. Johnny is basically sensing something, or the writer, the spirit of vengeance, Ghost Rider, senses something behind Johnny and Talia. And there you see Talia still with her eyes closed in deep concentration, trying to focus on the moon child to really get a clear view of what's inside. And basically, Talia kind of shoos Johnny away, like, listen, I need to concentrate, leave me the fuck alone. And Johnny's like, well, but the writer senses something in the woods. Johnny goes to investigate. He sees this big ass oak tree, like from the Wizard of Oz or some shit, that's alive and sentient. And Johnny Blaze is like, oh shit. And it's basically a bunch of trees. And now the writer, the spirit of vengeance, is really becoming more triggered and really becoming stimulated to the point to where now the writer is now even speaking through him, and Johnny and the writer are having dialogue, and Johnny's like, well, what the hell is this? And the writer's like, it's an old spell. It's called a warding tree, basically. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen here, but these trees basically have a purpose, and this old spell here, and the writer is becoming more triggered, and we may see him lash out. And now, again, to the left there, now Johnny Blaze is fully trying to get Talia's attention as he screams her name, and she then outbursts back, I'm trying to fucking concentrate, Johnny. Please leave me alone. And the Ghost Rider's chains and flesh and leather jacket and pants are now coming out of Johnny Blaze's mouth and orifices in his body. And Talia goes back to her concentrating on the moon child. Meanwhile, this tree now has sprouted an arm and it grabs her on the back of her shoulder. And Johnny Blaze is now skull and flame, Ghost Rider, chains and whips coming out, lashing out, spike belt. He just went to Hot Topic and got his full outfit, and the rider is now coming out because the spirit of vengeance senses something evil, and these sins need to be purged here. And it's a good thing because Talia's got her eyes closed, and so she needs someone to watch her back. Because this tree arm just snatches her up and pulls her into the black abyss. Maybe if she wasn't being such a bitch to Johnny, she could have focused, on at least getting them out of this weird forest, and then she could have reconnected with the Moonchild. Just saying. And Talia is now hoisted up in the air, hostage by this talking tree, and she has a narration bubble and says that, of course, this isn't the first time that she's been lost in the wilderness, and we get a really badass shot here of these two tree thugs right in front of Ghost Rider now. He's fully out, chains, leather, guns blazing, fire, hellfire. He's ready to kick some ass because they have now hoisted his girlfriend, well, not the writer's girlfriend, but the host's girlfriend, Johnny Blaze, up in the air, and that's something the Ghost Rider cannot have. And let's see how he proceeds to take care of these two walking pieces of wood. But before we get to that action, we're going to go to Baston, to the home of Talia Warroad, and on her doorstep is none other than the master of the mystic arts and protector of Earth 616 from the supernatural, Dr. Stephen Strange. That's right, Talia's parents had reached out to Dr. Stephen Strange because, well, when your daughter's up in her bedroom summoning all kinds of weird shit and drawing weird pentagrams on the floor, you get kind of concerned and you might want to call Dr. Strange if you have a Dr. Strange in your neighborhood or universe. So anyway, Doctor Strange visited Talia Warroad's parents' house in the last issue or the one before as kind of a consultation. I mean, he is a doctor after all, so he couldn't make any kind of diagnosis. But once he arrived previously, he knew that the house was stained. There was some dark magic. There were things going on, rituals, all kinds of shit. And so now he's returned to the home, and basically he can tell that from the years of anger and frustration from young Talia Road and her just irresponsibly practicing rituals and magic, that it had seeped into the very drywall and tile and wood and fabric of the house itself, and some kind of entity had manifested. Now, it wasn't Mephisto, but it was a fraction of his being, if you will, and it mentions something kind of in the shape of a golem, I guess, which is what her and Johnny Blaze, which I mentioned, that Moonchild, that they formed. I like to think of it as some kind of gray, big-headed ET extraterrestrial child who, if it were to go to school, would be picked on. But anyway, it was the kind of weird sexual fusion of their essences, their spirit, if you will, and she can remotely control that. But you see Doctor Strange navigating through the house like a G. He's not afraid because he can conjure up some kind of portal or, the bands of Sitarak or something to take on whatever's in there. But we're going to have to get back to the past to the Doctor later on because now we got to get to the future. And so basically, there you see the Moonchild kind of freely, just kind of floating, if you will, very dramatically into this facility, this house, if you will, this hideout of her ex boyfriend and the cult of Mephisto. And we're going through the different sections of what the Moonchild is witnessing because now these children who are in this home, they're basically just regular towns kids, but they've been taken over. They're under some kind of magical influence, and so they really aren't in control of their own faculties at the moment. They're under some kind of possession, but you see the Moonchild just creepily there up on the ceiling, just looking, observing. Talia is narrating this whole scene. She sees laboratories and of pain and spells and things like that, and the kids are there. You see on the right there, they're playing basketball with some kind of what appears to be like a head wrapped up in some kind of cloth material, and then this weird like ADHD Moonchild sees a black balloon that's just blacker than black, and I'm thinking, oh great, it's freaking Pennywise, but there's no sewer, they're not outside, so much like any child that likes a balloon, it sees it, it gets distracted, it has ADHD, and so basically. We can see clearly that this child's being lured somewhere by this balloon. I believe as some doors open and the balloon is kind of luring the child somewhere. So let's see where this is going to take it. Just kidding. We're going to go back to the past again to Talia World's home in Baston, where Doctor Strange was being pummeled by this freaking golem monster creature. And Doctor Strange is not a chump, and basically he gets his basketball wand, ring arm, magical bands, and he's like, look, man, Mephisto has no claim on Talia War Road. And he just whooshes, kashwow, whatever that freaking golem, creepy crawler, gremlin monster was, and just melts and disintegrates it off into nowhere. And then he hears the sniffles of a little child, and of course, who is it? Speak of the devil herself, no pun intended, little Miss Talia Warroad in a classic girly dress to kind of symbolize her innocence in a nice contrast because she is far from innocent, as you will see. She mentions that her parents never loved her and they wish they had a regular kid and blah 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 and they wish that she was dead and she then said, well, the feeling's basically mutual. I wish they were dead too. And she's like, I finally got my wish. As she creepily looks up at Doctor Strange and some symbol appears on her forehead. And then she realizes that her parents were dead. Now, Doctor Strange frantically travels to the scene of the car accident and he's hoping that it's not true. He's in disbelief. He's hoping that he's not too late. And there you hear the sounds of the sirens. Wee oo, wee oo, wee oo. And there you see Doctor Strange hovering. I don't know if anybody can see him or if he's in some kind of weird astral projection. I don't think he is because he's not transparent or translucent. But he's hovering above the crime scene where Talia's parents and their vehicle, the wreckage you see there, the ambulance, the debris, the smoke, all of the parts, and he believes that he is too late on the scene there. But what Doctor Strange does then is he closes his eyes and concentrates, and I believe he kind of sees the truth or figures out what's going on, and he realizes basically that there was a cipher of a death symbol on Talia World's parents' vehicle, and I believe that was the very same symbol on the young girl's forehead in the previous page that we saw. Now, what's very interesting here is it seems that Talia was under the impression that she had made a wish and she had actually been responsible for her parents' car accident and then untimely death. But Doctor Strange uncovers that it was her ex-boyfriend, Stephen Scar, who had placed that symbol on the vehicle. Now, I'm not saying he was her boyfriend at the time she was a young child. No, that's not what I'm saying. That's just something way, way, way in the past. So I don't know how exactly he knew her then, but maybe they were both children. But that's what Doctor Strange uncovered. And back to Jonny Blaze versus the Woodman. Release her, says Ghost Rider, as Talia is just wrapped up in this tree monster's long tree arm, which is like, cock! And Johnny Blaze unleashes his fiery hellfire chains, and he basically is telling this thing as he's bashing at whatever inhabits you, I control you. And Talia's like, Johnny! Oh, now she wants Johnny's attention. Now she wants his attention. When he was trying to get her fucking attention, when she was talking to the Moonchild, she didn't want to listen. But anyway, Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider says, whatever inhabits you, you're still made of wood that splinters. And he just grabs it kind of in a choking fashion to kind of saw it down with his chains and fire. And we see this badass scene here, just whoosh, more hellfire. It's going attempting to burn this wood, right? It's subjective to fire, to being burned. Ghost Rider's kicking ass. Only if Johnny Blaze had a fucking chainsaw, a fire, hellfire chainsaw. Now we're talking. And he goes to work. Look at this Ghost Rider with a hellfire flaming chainsaw to kick these woodmen's ass. That's what I'm talking about. Talking trees. You want to fuck with Johnny Blaze? You're about to catch this smoke from this chainsaw that he got from Lowe's. Somehow he just teleported it there. And we see this he just hacking and sawing with his chainsaw, making Leatherface just jealous or really proud, or both at the same time. But Ghost Rider basically saves Talia from these talking, demented, possessed, gigantic trees. And, instead of really just thanking him, she's like, we need to hurry. And you see, like, shades of her kind of transparent in the Moonchild's face. Because apparently the Moonchild, whatever room it walked in with that black balloon that it was fucking chasing, it's in trouble now. And Talia, while this is all going on, is having self reflection and basically saying that she feels resentful because she long ago dragged her parents into this supernatural, magical, demented community that she somehow got into, and now she's dragging Johnny Blaze into the very same thing. So, kind of the typical character profile of like the girl who seems like the outcast, but has magic, supernatural powers, and wants to do good, but in her attempts to do good, she just keeps hurting the people that she loves. So eventually, she has to just leave and go on the run because this weird shit is just attracted to her. She attracts drama and hurt and pain and violence. And now we go to the past once again, and just as I described, there are just a bunch of degenerate, magical, demented teens out here in the middle of fucking nowhere with a campfire. And there you see the leader, Stefan Sakar, and Talia Warroad. Okay, so that young girl, I don't think that was like Talia in the current time of the past, if that makes any sense. It was like some kind of, I don't know if the word's premonition. No, not premonition. It was some kind of, just kind of appearance, if you will, of her when she was a child. But she was not a child because, as you can clearly see, she's a teenager here with this guy, Stefan. And he's doing the classic bad boy consoling, basically telling her, hey, everyone's parents die, and, we're your new family now. Yeah, this fucking cult who doesn't even have a roof over their head. They're in the middle of nowhere. And she's crying, all her makeup's running down her face, and she's like, "Oh, Stefan." And then meanwhile, yup, Doctor Strange isn't done. This doctor makes house calls or middle of nowhere calls, and he shows up through a portal, and he's like, "You know what, Stefan? I doubt she'll want to spend another minute with you, with your fucked up haircut. It's not even blended or faded. The moment she finds out that you were responsible, Stefan Sakar, for the death of her mother and father." And here we see it is about to go down. Steven turns the rest of the Cult of Mephisto members on Doctor Strange, but he's already summoned his geographical magic hand spheres, and he's ready. And he says, "Yes, please form a single file line." And he opens his portal, and they all fall through it. And where do they fall? Right into the prison in front of the cops because they're all wanted for criminal charges. Now, I don't know if Doctor Strange arranged that with those police officers or how they're even going to process everyone or even understand where the hell these people came from and how they got there. But anyway, they're there where they belong. So now it's just mano a mano. It's just down to one or two. Steven, Doctor Strange versus Stefan, Steven and Stefan, and there you see Talia just like clinging to his hand on the floor, kind of begging him like not to hurt anyone, But Doctor Strange is game, right? He is no stranger, no stranger, no pun intended, to magical combat, and he is ready for anything that Stefan can throw at him. And that's a good thing because Stefan throws pretty much all a quarter of the hellfire at Doctor Strange, but his sentient cape cloak covers him and protects him from any severe damage. Now, basically, Stefan is basically threw that fire at Doctor Strange as a distraction, and he wants to flee. So he's telling Talia, "Let's get out of here." But in the process of him running away, his feet sink into the ground there, as you see. Now, this was Talia's doing. She caused him to sink. Twist of fate here. Now, Doctor Strange, you see through the fires that they have succumbed. He says, "Talia, you have a choice now," because now Talia is basically putting Stefan, her ex-boyfriend, in a position where she can question him. She used some of her magic to now sink him into the ground, and he's like, "Talia!" Because he's aware that she's the one that's doing it. And she just wants to know, is it true? Now, Doctor Strange again coming in and giving her again two paths. He says, "Listen, Talia, if you choose the path of blood and fire of your parents' murder, you will forever be damned, a damned prisoner of Mephisto." And then we see him. He says, "Talia, don't do it." Talia, grab my hand. I stand corrected. Stefan didn't know that it was Talia's spell. So Talia does grab his hand. He basically, again, like any devil or crafty guy, is going to tell her, "I'll give you anything you want." She grabs his hand. And he says, "Please pull me out of his fucking spell." And that's when Talia drops the bombshell and says, "It's not his spell." And as you see her there powering up, like reminiscent of Aurora Monroe Storm, lightning bolts and stuff coming out of her like Jin Kazama from Tekken. And there we see this fiery flame pentagram engulf and encircle Stefan as he's in the floor. And then here she reveals, "It's mine." And she's going to send him to hell. And Doctor Strange again frantically intervenes and says, "Talia, don't, because if you do, you're going to become just like him. You're going to seal your fate." And this is just a badass scene here. Doctor Strange is like a father who's coming in between two disobedient children. He's just had enough. And he just uses some kind of magical, mystical explosion Kaioken and just blast both of them apart there. You see with the remnants of the thunder, the lightning aftershock, because Doctor Strange does need these two now to sit down and listen. And Stefan is unconscious, but he's not damned to hell. And Doctor Strange approaches Talia and basically gives her a proposition. He tells her she has raw talent, but he can polish her, he can help her, he can train her, he can help her hone her skills. He offers to, be her mentor. And Talia, in typical rebellious teen fashion, basically gets on a bike and says she's done following orders, and her parents are gone now, so she has magic and stuff, so she can pretty much get whatever she needs. And she's like, she's done, and she basically tells Stephen Strange to fuck off, and she rides away. And now we go back to present day, and Ghost Rider and Talia are riding in on the Rider's awesome badass cycle with flaming wheels into the compound of the cult of Mephisto and Stefan, where he's got these children under his spell, and Ghost Rider making a badass entrance, and Talia again having more dialogue and self-reflection, basically saying that her failing to stop Stefan all those years ago meant that this school was now filled with these neglected children. And of course, they come to a halt now, and Ghost Rider is again ready to take up arms or take up chains or even chainsaws and cut these demented spirits down if necessary, purge these spirits. And Talia, of course, again in this kind of fashion, if you will, it seems appropriate. She says, "No, I want to do it on my own," and basically gives Ghost Rider the kind of second fiddle job of like babysitting these magic ghost teens. So, that's kind of what I was referring to. This is Ghost Rider's book, but about the middle of this volume, he kind of took a backseat to Talia. But I mean, I guess we've come this far, so she needs to have closure on her story and this chapter. And finally, the final boss fight. And there we see where that little ADHD kid went to find some sort of a papa. He's sitting on the lap of none other than Stefan Sakar, or Scar, and he basically tells Talia that, there's that fucking balloon. At least it's not Pennywise. And he tells Talia that per that last meeting where we saw him like halfway buried into the floor, Doctor Strange apparently sent him to the dungeon dimension, I guess, after Talia rode off. And he basically tells her, she says, "Oh, you're still up to your old tricks, manipulating a whole new generation of children." And then he goes, "I kind of wished, we would always, have a child, but if this weird, gray, big-headed, deformed thing is all you're capable of producing, then I'm just better off without you." And meanwhile, as they're speaking, he's like, "I've got all kinds of children now." As we see Ghost Rider beginning to chastise and whoop those kids with his fiery flame chains. And Stefan then goes and tells the weird ET baby kid to go show mommy your balloon. And as the kid's walking over to her, he's telling her that basically this world rewards the normal people punching in time cards, basically giving her the whole network marketing upline speech that you get, bashing jobs and your boring mundane life and your white picket fences. And he says he's there for the freaks, the people who really have the potential to bring this world crashing down to its knees. And as the child approaches Talia, boom, the balloon pops and that darkness just infects her and she screams. And Stefan says, "You used to have that same desire." And basically he tells her, "But like, what, you're like a cop now?" Referring to her working with the FBI. Is like fucking pathetic. So just like belittling her and just degrading her. And he's like, "You used to be so much cooler." And she was like, "The darkness was always in me. You just taught me to control it." As she looks into the eyes of her sad, confused, ADHD, gray, big-headed child. Now, this panel is very cool. Ghost Rider comes to a standstill. Meanwhile, Talia is speaking, and basically, Talia is telling him that no, those children aren't like you. They're not evil. They don't want to hurt people or themselves, no matter what they say. And Ghost Rider does something really cool and noble because he realizes he's dealing with children, and he says, "All your anger, all your sins, your trespasses, I will swallow." And the Ghost Rider there you see pulling, and like a vacuum, pulling all their anger, all the spirit, the essence, the all the demonic presences, and pulling them unto himself and cleansing the children completely. And there you see the faces of innocence on these children, and Ghost Rider like a messiah saying, "You are forgiven." And then Talia also going hand in hand with what Ghost Rider says, "All they want is love." And here you see now the two of them in what appears to be some kind of black symbolic circle forming around Stefan. And Talia basically tells him that she was a better student than he was a teacher, and she was always better than him. She was better than him then, and she's better than him now. Basically giving him the Bret Hart speech that she's the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. And at that announcement of that, again, he falls for that spell, the same one years ago when he was engulfed and encircled in that flaming pentagram. Now, that flaming pentagram was basically a portal. As you see, they melt through and fall through here. The child there thinks it's a game. He's probably like, "Wee!" just waiting to fly. Stefan, he's terrified because this is now the second time that the hands and fiends of hell are trying to grasp him and take his soul, which I don't know if he died or if he's alive still. And Talia is actually finding peace in all of this. And there you see, there's her parents too, right? Her parents came up from the depths and the pits, to grab onto them as well, right? They gotta eat too. And she says, "My mother, my father," because they'd be alive if it weren't for her. And there you see Talia, her arms spread out and a kind of look of peace of mind smile on her face as Steven's just fucking terrified in the background, and that kid doesn't know what to do. He thinks it's a game still. And basically she is okay. She's at peace. She's accepted her fate and come to terms with this. But there you see Jonny Blaze, coming in because, well, his lover and new girlfriend is basically allowing herself and her ex and their weird essence child, to basically go down and be damned into hell along with their dead parents. And Johnny Blaze rushes over and he tries to extend and reach out his arm and he's saying, Talia, no, we can form a life. It can be different. As she's swallowed up by the flames, all she says is, I'm sorry, Johnny, but my past finally caught up with me. Wow. And he goes, Talia! As the floor closes and Johnny's left in that circle as the smoke fades away. And we see now Johnny Blaze narrating and riding on the highway, mentioning that he got all the kids home safely to their parents and told the parents to keep them close. And he was jealous of the children because they had someone that loved them, and that's what Johnny Blaze wanted. He wanted to love someone, someone to love him, and someone to love back. And but basically, Johnny Blaze realized that being alone was where he belonged because anytime anyone ends up close to him, they seemingly end up dead. But the only one that he can't quit seems to be the spirit of vengeance. And it's kind of funny that he says that because he mentions that recently he's been seeing kind of signs or omens, if you will, things like that makes him ponder. A raven, cawing in the wind, blowing through the forest, the embers at a campfire shifting, and through some kind of holistic, weird way, he believes that they're all whispering the same thing. And there you see the one who bestowed the spirit of vengeance upon him in the first place, Mephisto, saying that your time as the Ghost Rider is about to come to an end. And here we see the solicitation cover for the next uh, issue of Ghost Rider. Now, this will be Ghost Rider number 1, volume 11. So they will be starting over, but it will be overall legacy number 265. Now, you see the individual there standing. Now, he looks like a Johnny Blaze archetype, the profile, if you will. You know, tall, lean, muscular white male, leather jacket, white shirt with jeans on. But who is this character? Is it Danny Ketch? Is it anybody related to Johnny Blaze? Is it someone entirely new? Who will Mephisto choose? How will the spirit of vengeance be bestowed upon them? Now, this is very, very interesting, people, because again, this is now the second issue, very, very recent, right after Timeless. If you haven't watched my video on Timeless, go watch that. A lot of people have been watching that video. There have been a lot of likes and a few comments on that, so go check that out. And this is one of uh, the clues, the sneak peeks that we get in one of the flashbacks that Luke Cage has. We see what appears to be a man in a leather jacket, in denim jeans, on his knees, and a flaming skull leaving his body. Now, that was very symbolic, I believe, and reminiscent, and that of Johnny Blaze on his knees, and the spirit of vengeance finally leaving him, and apparently maybe going to a new host. So basically, guys, if go check that out in Timeless. But this is very cool now that Timeless kind of sets up basically the 2024 Marvel Comic Universe lineup, and it's even more fun now for me as a reader to basically look for these clues from Timeless and try to piece these puzzle or piece these pieces together to this basically timeless puzzle. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for your support. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, this has been Trademark Comics, and I'm out.